I thought I was protecting them. I was wrong. Subscribe for more classified federal investigations. Like if you'll never look at census forms the same way again.
Before we start, hit subscribe if you want more stories like this. Drop a like and comment where you're watching from. Let's get into it. My name is Harold Whitfield, and in 1970, I was a field supervisor with the United States Census Bureau assigned to the Appalachian region of West Virginia. I'd been with the Bureau for 12 years, worked 3 decennial censuses, and thought I understood how difficult enumeration could get in remote areas. I was wrong. The 1970 census was supposed to be the most accurate count in American history. New methods, better training, computerized tabulation. We were going to count every single person in every single household in the United States. No exceptions. But there were always exceptions. My territory covered 6 counties in the mountains of eastern West Virginia. Coal country. Hollers and ridges and communities that hadn't changed much since the Civil War. Some of these places didn't have paved roads, some didn't have electricity, and some of them really didn't want to be counted. The trouble started in April, 3 weeks into enumeration. I got a call from my regional director in Charleston. "Whitfield," he said, "we've got a problem in Barron County." "What kind of problem?" 3 enumerators have gone missing, all assigned to the same route." "Missing how?" I asked. "Just gone. Drove up into the mountains, never came back. Local sheriff found their cars parked at the end of a dirt road. No sign of the workers, no sign of foul play, just empty vehicles and incomplete forms. That didn't make sense. Census workers didn't just disappear. They quit, they got sick, they refused difficult assignments. But they didn't vanish. "What route were they working?" I asked. "Route 7, 12 households in an unincorporated area called Crownover Hollow." The director paused. "Here's the thing, Harold. Those 12 households have never been successfully enumerated. Not in 1970. Not in 1960. Not ever." "Ever? That's impossible. The census has been conducted since 1790. I know. And I pulled the historical records. Every decade since 1790, we've sent enumerators to Crownover Hollow. And every decade, something goes wrong. Workers quit. Workers disappear. Forms get lost. One way or another, those 12 households never get counted. That's 180 years of failed enumeration. That's exactly what it is. And now, I've got 3 missing workers and a regional director breathing down my neck about completion rates. I need you to go up there personally and find out what's happening." I didn't like it. 3 missing people was a law enforcement matter, not a Census Bureau problem. But the director made it clear this came from above. Washington wanted answers. And if I wanted to keep my job, I'd better find them. I drove to Barron County the next morning. It was beautiful country if you liked that sort of thing. Green mountains, winding roads, morning mist hanging in the valleys. But there was something about it that felt closed off, unwelcoming, like the land itself was watching you and waiting for you to leave. The county seat was a town called Ridgemont. Population 2,400. 1 main street, a courthouse, a diner, and not much else. I stopped at the sheriff's office to get information about the missing enumerators. Sheriff Dale Hutchins was a big man in his 50s with a face like weathered leather and eyes that had seen things he didn't talk about. When I told him why I was there, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Census Bureau," he said. "You folks don't give up, do you? 3 of our people are missing. I'd like to know what happened to them. What happened is they went up to Crownover Hollow. Same thing that always happens. Which is what exactly?" He looked at me for a long moment. "You ever hear of that place before?" "Just what my director told me. 12 households, never been enumerated. There's a reason for that. The folks up there don't want to be counted. And they've got ways of making sure they aren't." "What kind of ways?" Hutchins shook his head. I'm not going to tell you stories, Mr. Whitfield. You're a government man. You deal in facts and figures. So here are the facts. Every 10 years, the Census Bureau sends people up to Crownover Hollow. And every 10 years, those people either come back refusing to talk about what they saw, or they don't come back at all. My advice: mark those 12 households as non-responsive and move on. I can't do that. We're required by law to attempt enumeration of every household. Then you're going to have a problem, because those people have been refusing enumeration for longer than there's been a Census Bureau, longer than there's been a United States. That's not possible. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. A lot of things aren't possible, Mr. Whitfield. Doesn't stop them from being true. I left the sheriff's office with more questions than answers. But I wasn't going to be deterred by local superstition. I was a federal employee with a job to do. If 3 enumerators had disappeared, I needed to find out why. And if 12 households had avoided enumeration for 180 years, I needed to understand how. I spent the afternoon reviewing the historical records I'd brought from Charleston. The sheriff was right. Every census since 1790 had attempted to enumerate Crownover Hollow, and every census had failed. The 1790 records showed 12 households listed on the route, but marked unable to enumerate. Residents refused. Same in 1800, same in 1810. All the way through to 1960, the same 12 households, the same result. But it was worse than simple refusal. The records showed a pattern of problems associated with that route. Enumerators who quit mid-assignment. Enumerators who returned their forms blank with no explanation. And in several decades, enumerators who simply disappeared. 1830. Enumerator Josiah Crane, last seen entering Crownover Hollow, never returned. 1870. Enumerator Samuel Whitmore, found deceased on road leading to Crownover Hollow, cause of death undetermined. 1910. Enumerator Mary Sutton, returned from Crownover Hollow, refused to speak about experience, committed to state hospital. 1940. Enumerator Robert Chen, vehicle found abandoned near Crownover Hollow, whereabouts unknown. And now, 1970. 3 more enumerators missing. What was happening up there? I also noticed something else in the records. Something that made no sense. The names. In 1790, the 12 households in Crownover Hollow were listed as Aldridge, Barnwell, Crane, Doyle, Everett, Finch, Graves, Holloway, Irving, Jessup, Kilpatrick, and Lowell. In 1800, the same 12 names. In 1810, in 1820, in 1830. All the way through to 1960, every single census listed the same 12 family names in Crownover Hollow. That wasn't unusual in itself. Families stayed in the same places for generations, especially in isolated areas. But the records showed something more specific. Not just the same family names, the same individual names, the same ages, the same number of people in each household. In 1790, the Aldridge household was listed as James Aldridge, age 34, Martha Aldridge, age 31. 3 children, ages 8, 6, and 2. In 1960, the Aldridge household was listed as James Aldridge, age 34. Martha Aldridge, age 31. 3 children, ages 8, 6, and 2. 170 years, same names, same ages, same family composition. I checked the other households. Same pattern. Every single family listed with the exact same members at the exact same ages in every census from 1790 to 1960. It had to be an error. Some kind of clerical mistake. Enumerators copying old records instead of collecting new data. That would explain why the households were never properly enumerated. Someone had been cheating, filling in the same information decade after decade. But that didn't explain the missing enumerators. That didn't explain Mary Sutton in the state hospital, or Samuel Whitmore dead on the road. I needed to see for myself. The next morning, I drove up to Crownover Hollow. The road started paved, became gravel, became dirt, became 2 ruts through the undergrowth barely wide enough for my car. The mountains closed in on both sides, blocking the sunlight, turning the morning into a green twilight. After about an hour, I came to a clearing where 3 vehicles were parked. The missing enumerators' cars. I pulled up beside them and got out. The cars were unlocked. Personal effects still inside. Purses, wallets, census forms. No sign of struggle. No sign of anything wrong. Just 3 cars waiting for their owners to return. I looked up the road. It continued into the hollow, disappearing into the trees. I could turn back, report what I'd found, and let law enforcement handle it. That would be the smart thing to do. But I kept thinking about those records. Same names, same ages, same families for 180 years. It wasn't possible. There had to be an explanation. I started walking. The road got worse the further I went. Ruts deep enough to swallow a tire, branches scraping overhead. Nobody had maintained this in years, maybe decades, but someone was using it. I could see tire tracks in the mud, recent ones. After about 2 miles, I came to the first house. It was old, really old. Hand-hewn logs, stone chimney, windows of real glass that had to be 100 years old at least. But it was well maintained. Smoke rose from the chimney. Clothes hung on a line in the yard. Chickens pecked in the dirt. And standing on the porch watching me was a man. He was maybe mid-30s. Dark hair, clean-shaven, wearing simple clothes that looked handmade. He didn't move as I approached, didn't wave, didn't call out. Just watched me with an expression I couldn't read. "Good morning," I called out. "I'm Harold Whitfield with the United States Census Bureau. I'm here to conduct the 1970 enumeration." The man didn't respond. "I have some questions about your household," I continued. "How many people live here? What are their names and ages? It will only take a few minutes, still nothing." He just stood there watching me. "Sir," I said, "I'm required by law to collect this information. I'd appreciate your cooperation." Finally, he spoke. His voice was flat, emotionless. "We don't get counted. I'm afraid that's not an option. Every household in the United States is required to participate in the census. We don't get counted," he repeated. "We never have. We never will. Can you tell me why?" He looked at me for a long moment. Then he turned and went inside, closing the door behind him. I stood there in the yard, not sure what to do. In 12 years with the Census Bureau, I'd dealt with refusals before. People who didn't trust the government, people who didn't want to be tracked, people who just didn't like answering questions. But this was different. There was something in the man's voice that wasn't defiance or suspicion. It was certainty. Absolute certainty that he would not be counted. I walked on to the next house. Same result. A woman on the porch, same flat expression, same words. "We don't get counted." Third house, fourth house, fifth, all 12 households, all the same response. "We don't get counted." Doors closing. Conversation over. But I noticed things as I walked through Crownover Hollow. Things that didn't add up. The people. There were 12 households, and I saw people at every one. Men, women, children. They all looked healthy, well-fed, normal by any standard. But there was something wrong with them. Something I couldn't quite identify. And then I realized what it was. They looked exactly like the descriptions in the census records. James Aldridge, age 34. The man at the first house was mid-30s, dark-haired, matched the description perfectly. Martha Aldridge, age 31. A woman I'd seen in the window, early 30s, brown hair, could have been the same person described 180 years ago. The children, I'd seen children at several houses, and they matched too. Ages 8, 6, and 2. Ages 12 and 9. Ages 7, 5, 5, and 3. The exact ages listed in every census since 1790. That wasn't possible. People aged. People died. People were born. The population of a community couldn't stay exactly the same for 180 years. But as I looked at the people of Crownover Hollow, I started to wonder if maybe it could. I came to the last house, the Lowell household according to the records. An old man sat on the porch in a rocking chair. Unlike the others, he seemed willing to talk. "You're from the census," he said as I approached. It wasn't a question, that's right. "I'm trying to understand why your community refuses enumeration." He rocked slowly, looking at me with eyes that seemed too old for his face. "Sit down, Mr. Whitfield." I sat on the porch steps. The old man rocked. "You've seen the records," he said. "You've noticed the pattern, the names and ages. They're the same in every census going back to 1790. "That's right." "How is that possible?" He stopped rocking, looked at me directly. "It's possible because we don't change, we don't age, we don't die. We've been here since before there was a census, since before there was a country, and we'll be here long after both are gone." I stared at him. "That's not possible. You keep saying that word. Possible. Let me ask you something, Mr. Whitfield. What do you think the census is for? To count the population, to understand who lives where, how many people, what resources they need. That's what they tell you. But the census is about something else. It's about control. You can't govern what you can't count. You can't tax it, can't draft it, can't regulate it. The census is how the government makes people real, makes them part of the system. And you don't want to be part of the system. We can't be part of the system. If we're counted, we're known. And if we're known, we can be found. Found by who? The old man started rocking again. There are things older than your government, Mr. Whitfield. Older than your country. Things that have been looking for us for a very long time. We came here to hide, to be forgotten. The only way we stay safe is to stay uncounted. What happened to the 3 enumerators? I asked. The ones who came here before me. He didn't answer. Are they alive? They're alive. They're just not leaving. Where are they? He pointed down the road, past the last house into the deeper woods. They're with the others. Everyone who came here and saw too much. Everyone who couldn't be allowed to leave. I felt a chill despite the warm morning. Am I going to be allowed to leave? The old man looked at me. That depends on what you do next. The old man's words hung in the air. That depends on what you do next. I stood up from the porch steps. My instincts told me to leave. Walk back to my car and drive away and never come back to Crownover Hollow. Let the 12 households remain uncounted for another decade. Let the mystery stay a mystery, but I couldn't do that. 3 people were missing, my people, Census Bureau employees under my supervision. I couldn't leave them behind. Where are they? I asked again. The enumerators. I need to see them. The old man studied me. You're not going to leave this alone, are you? I can't. He nodded slowly, like he'd expected that answer. Then follow the road, past the last house into the woods. You'll find them. But Mr. Whitfield, once you see what's there, you won't be able to unsee it. And you might not be able to leave. I'll take that chance. He started rocking again, looking out at the hollow with those ancient eyes. Brave or foolish. Sometimes they're the same thing. I walked past the Lowell house, past the end of the maintained road, into the forest. The path here was barely visible, just a track through the undergrowth that might have been made by deer or might have been made by people who didn't want to be followed. The trees closed in overhead, blocking what little sunlight penetrated the hollow. It was cool here, quiet, the only sound my footsteps and the occasional call of a bird. But there was something else too, a feeling of being watched, of eyes in the shadows tracking my movement. After about a mile, I came to another clearing, and in that clearing was a cabin. It was old, like all the buildings in Crownover Hollow, but this one was different. There were bars on the windows. The door was reinforced with iron straps. And standing outside, leaning against a tree, was a man with a shotgun. He was one of them. I could tell by the look. That same flat expression. That same sense of timelessness. He watched me approach without surprise. "You're here for the census people," he said. "That's right. They're inside. You can talk to them, but they're not leaving. Neither are you now." He opened the door and gestured for me to enter. I didn't have a choice. I stepped inside. The cabin was one room, maybe 20 feet by 20 feet. There was a fireplace, a table, some chairs, and sitting at the table, looking at me with expressions of desperate hope, were 3 people, my enumerators. "Mr. Whitfield," one of them said. She was young, maybe 25, red hair, named Patricia Oakes according to my records. Thank God. "We've been here for 3 weeks. They won't let us leave." "Are you hurt?" I asked. "No. They feed us, give us water. But we can't go. Every time we try, they stop us." The other 2 were a middle-aged man named Thomas Chen and a young man named David Welch. They looked tired, frightened, but physically unharmed. "What happened?" I asked. "Why won't they let you leave?" Thomas answered, "We saw them, Mr. Whitfield. We saw what they really are." "What do you mean?" Patricia spoke up, her voice shaking. "The first few houses, they just refused to answer questions. Same as always. But I pushed. I went back to the Aldridge house, tried to talk my way in. The man there, James Aldridge, he got angry. Really angry. And when he got angry, he changed. Changed how?" She looked at me with haunted eyes. His face, it shifted. Just for a second, it was like the mask slipped. Underneath, he was old. Ancient, like something that's been alive for hundreds of years. And his eyes, they weren't human eyes. They were black. Completely black. "That's not possible," I said. Even as I said it, I knew I was repeating myself. Everything I'd seen in Crownover Hollow wasn't possible. But it was happening anyway. "We all saw it," David said. "Different people, different moments, but they all did the same thing. When they got upset, the disguise failed. We saw what's underneath. And that's when they locked us up. They can't let us tell anyone," Thomas said. "Whatever they are, they've been hiding here for centuries. If word got out, people would come looking. Scientists, government, military. Their whole existence depends on staying hidden." "On not being counted," I said. "Exactly." I looked around the cabin. 1 door, barred windows, an armed guard outside. "We weren't getting out by force. There has to be something we can do," I said. "Some way to negotiate." Patricia shook her head. "We've tried. They won't budge. They say we can stay here, live comfortable lives, but we can never leave the hollow. Never contact the outside world again. That's not acceptable. They don't care what's acceptable. They've been doing this for 180 years. Everyone who sees too much ends up here. Or dead." I thought about the historical records, the missing enumerators, the ones who died, the one who ended up in a state hospital. Crownover Hollow had been protecting its secret for a long time. "Let me talk to them," I said. "Maybe I can find another way." I went to the door. The guard was still outside, shotgun cradled in his arms. "I need to speak with someone in charge," I told him. "Someone who can make decisions." He looked at me for a moment, then nodded. "Wait here." He disappeared into the woods. I waited, thinking about what Patricia had described. Faces that shifted. Black eyes. Disguises that failed when emotions ran high. What were these people? About 20 minutes later, the guard returned. With him was the old man from the Lowell house, plus 2 others. A woman and a man, both with that same ageless quality, that same sense of being from another time. "Mr. Whitfield," the old man said, "you wanted to talk. I want you to release these people. They're federal employees. Their disappearance will be investigated. More people will come looking for them, and then more. You can't keep doing this forever. We've been doing it for 180 years, the woman said. We can do it for 180 more. The world is different now. There are technologies you don't understand. Ways of tracking people, finding people. If you don't let us go, eventually someone will find this place." The old man shook his head. "No one finds us unless we allow it. This hollow is protected, hidden from maps, from satellites, from anyone who doesn't already know it's here. That's not possible." There's that word again. The old man almost smiled. "Mr. Whitfield, you keep trying to apply your rules to us. Your understanding of what can and cannot be. But we're not part of your world. We never were. Then, what are you?" The 3 of them exchanged glances. Then the old man spoke. "We're old. Very old. We were here before the first humans crossed the land bridge from Asia. We watched your kind spread across this continent. Watched you build civilizations and tear them down and build them again. We're not human, but we can look human. We can live among you, if we choose. Why hide here? Why stay in this hollow for centuries? Because we're being hunted. There are others like us, but not like us. Enemies from a war that started before your kind learned to write. They've been searching for us for millennia. The only way we survive is to stay hidden. No records, no documentation, no proof that we exist. And the census threatens that. The census is the most dangerous thing your government does to us. Every 10 years, they try to count every person in the country. Every 10 years, they come here with their forms and their questions, trying to make us real. Trying to make us visible. If we're ever entered into your records, our enemies will find us, and they will destroy us." I looked at the 3 people claiming to be ancient non-human beings hiding from enemies in a centuries-old war. It sounded insane. It sounded impossible. But I'd seen the records. Same names, same ages, for 180 years. I'd seen their faces, the wrongness in their expressions. And I'd seen my 3 enumerators, trapped in a cabin, confirming what they'd witnessed. "What do you want?" I asked. "What would it take to let us go?" The old man's expression hardened. "We want what we've always wanted, to be left alone, to be forgotten, to stay uncounted. If I could guarantee that, would you release us? How would you guarantee it? How do we know you won't report what you've seen the moment you leave? Because I'll give you something, proof that I'm serious. The census records, the historical files, everything that documents your existence. I'll destroy it all. And I'll mark Crownover Hollow as enumerated in 1970. 12 households. Normal responses. You'll be hidden in plain sight. Just numbers in a database that no one will ever look at twice." The 3 of them conferred in a language I didn't recognize. It wasn't English, wasn't any language I'd ever heard. It was old, older than the mountains around us. Finally, the old man turned back to me. "How do we know you'll keep your word?" I looked at him, because I've spent 12 years making sure the census is accurate, making sure every person is counted correctly, It goes against everything I believe in to falsify records and destroy documentation. If I'm willing to do that for you, you can be damn sure I'm not going to turn around and report you afterward." He studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. "We'll release the enumerators. They'll leave with you. They'll say nothing about what they saw. If they do, we'll know. And we'll find them. They'll stay quiet. I'll make sure of it. You'll destroy the historical records? Everything that documents your community. Every census entry back to 1790. It will all be gone. And you'll enter us in 1970 as normal households? 12 families, standard responses, just names on a form." The old man looked at his companions. They nodded. "Then we have an agreement." We left Crownover Hollow that afternoon. All 4 of us, walking down that dirt road to where the cars were parked. Nobody spoke. The weight of what we'd seen and agreed to was too heavy for conversation. At the cars, I gathered my team. "Listen to me carefully," I said. "What happened here, what you saw, you can never tell anyone. Not your families, not your friends, not law enforcement, no one. As far as the world is concerned, you were delayed by bad roads and uncooperative residents. Nothing more." Patricia started to protest. "But Mr. Whitfield, they're not human, they're dangerous. Someone needs to know. No. I need you to understand something. They've been hiding here for centuries. Longer. They have abilities we don't understand. If you talk, if you try to expose them, they will find you. And they won't be as generous as they were this time." She went quiet. "I gave you my word to keep their secret. I need you to keep it too. Can you do that?" Slowly, reluctantly, they all nodded. "Good. Now go home. Take a few days off. Then come back to work and pretend none of this ever happened." They got in their cars and drove away. I watched them go, hoping I'd made the right decision, hoping they'd keep their mouths shut. Then I got in my own car and drove back to Charleston. Over the next week, I did what I'd promised. I went into the archives and pulled every census record for Crownover Hollow dating back to 1790. I destroyed them all, shredded the paper records, erased the microfilm copies, removed every reference from every index. Then I created new records for 1970. 12 households with normal entries, names, ages, occupations, all fabricated but plausible. The kind of data that no one would ever look at twice. When I was done, Crownover Hollow was just another rural community in the mountains of West Virginia. Nothing special, nothing unusual, nothing to draw attention. I submitted my reports, enumeration complete, all households counted. Route 7 successfully finished after initial delays. No one asked questions. No one investigated. The 1970 census was declared a success, and Crownover Hollow was officially counted for the first time in 180 years. Except it wasn't really counted. It was hidden, buried in fake data that would keep their secret safe. I'd betrayed everything I believed in as a census worker. The accuracy of the count, the integrity of the data, the fundamental purpose of the enumeration. I'd lied to my employer, destroyed federal records, and falsified official documents. But I'd saved 4 lives, including my own. And I'd protected something ancient that just wanted to be left alone. Was it the right decision? I still don't know. But sometimes at night I think about those 12 families in the hollow, unchanged for centuries, hiding from enemies I couldn't comprehend, watching humanity grow and spread and never being part of it. And I wonder what it must be like to live that way. To never age, never die, never change. To watch the world move on without you, decade after decade, century after century. Maybe that's not immortality. Maybe that's its own kind of prison. For 10 years, I kept the secret. I moved to a desk job in Washington after the 1970 census. Couldn't face going back into the field. Couldn't risk being assigned to another territory where something impossible might be hiding. I pushed paper, reviewed reports, and tried to forget what I'd seen in Crownover Hollow. Patricia Oakes quit the Census Bureau within a month of our return. Moved to California, never looked back. Thomas Chen transferred to a different agency. David Welch stayed, but we never spoke about what happened. When we passed in the hallways, we'd nod and look away. Some things are better left buried, but secrets have a way of surfacing. In 1980, the decennial census came around again. I was 53 years old, senior staff, too valuable to put in the field, but too experienced not to be consulted on difficult cases. When the planning started, I made sure Crownover Hollow was assigned to a different supervisor. Made sure the route was marked as historically non-responsive, unlikely to yield useful data, not worth the effort of aggressive follow-up. I thought I'd protected them, hidden them in bureaucracy and indifference. I was wrong. The 1980 census introduced something new, computerized cross-referencing. For the first time, we could automatically compare current data against historical records, identify discrepancies, flag anomalies for review. I'd destroyed the historical records for Crownover Hollow, but I'd created new ones for 1970, fake data, fabricated families, and fake data has patterns that computers can detect. In March 1980, I got a call from the Data Analysis Division. They'd found something strange in the West Virginia records. There's a community called Crownover Hollow in Barron County, the analyst told me. According to the 1970 data, 12 households, normal population. But when we cross-reference with county records, property tax filings, birth certificates, death certificates, there's nothing. It's like these people don't exist outside of the census. I felt my stomach drop. That's probably just incomplete county records. Rural areas often have documentation gaps. That's what I thought too. But then I ran the names through our historical database. The names you recorded in 1970 don't appear in any previous census. Not 1960, not 1950, not ever. And the ages don't match standard demographic patterns. It's like someone created these records from scratch. I tried to keep my voice steady. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting the 1970 data for Crownover Hollow might be falsified, and I'm wondering why a senior field supervisor would fabricate census records for a community that apparently doesn't exist. I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. The analyst wasn't going to let this go. He'd keep digging. He'd find the inconsistencies, flag them for investigation, maybe even bring in law enforcement. And eventually someone would go back to Crownover Hollow and start asking questions. I'd tried to protect them. Instead, I'd painted a target on their backs. I had to warn them. I drove to West Virginia that night. 12 hours through the mountains in the dark, pushing my old sedan as fast as it would go. By dawn, I was in Barron County, and by mid-morning, I was on that dirt road again, driving up into the hollow. It looked the same. The houses, the gardens, the chickens in the yards, like no time had passed at all. Because for them, no time had passed. I went to the Lowell house. The old man was on his porch, rocking in his chair, like he'd been waiting for me. "Mr. Whitfield," he said, "you're back." I told him everything. The computerized cross-referencing, the analyst who'd flagged the discrepancies, the investigation that was coming. He listened without expression. When I finished, he nodded slowly. I knew this would happen eventually. Your technology keeps getting better. Harder to hide, harder to stay unseen. You need to leave, I said. All of you, find somewhere else, somewhere they can't find you. He shook his head. We can't leave. This hollow is protected. The land itself hides us. Anywhere else, we'd be exposed. Then what are you going to do? What we've always done. Wait, see if the danger passes. It won't pass. They're going to investigate. They're going to come here. He looked at me with those ancient eyes. Maybe. But there are worse things than census investigators, Mr. Whitfield. We've been hiding from something much older than your government. The enemies you mentioned, the ones hunting you. Yes. What are they? He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood up from his chair. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led me into the woods, down a path I hadn't seen before. We walked for maybe half a mile, deep into the hollow, until we came to a place where the trees opened up around a rock formation. It was a cliff face, maybe 30 feet high, and carved into the rock were symbols, older than any human writing I'd ever seen. This is our history, the old man said. The story of who we are and why we're hiding. I looked at the symbols. I couldn't read them, but I could feel their age, their weight. Tell me, I said. He touched the rock, tracing one of the symbols with his finger. We're not from this world, he said. Not originally. We came here a long time ago, before your kind existed. We came because we were fleeing. There was a war in the place we came from. A war between those who wanted to change and those who wanted to stay the same. Which side were you on? We wanted to stay the same. We believed in permanence, in eternal existence unchanged by time. But we lost the war. The others, the ones who wanted change, they hunted us, destroyed most of us. The survivors fled here to this world, and we've been hiding ever since. That was thousands of years ago. How are they still hunting you? Because they're eternal too. They don't die, just like we don't die, and they don't forget. They've been searching for us all this time. Sometimes they find one of our hiding places and destroy it. We've lost communities over the centuries. We're all that's left now, these 12 families. And if they find you here? He looked at me. Then we cease to exist. Not die. Cease to exist. Like we never were. That's what they do. They erase us from reality itself. I stared at the symbols, trying to comprehend what he was telling me. Beings from another world. A war that spanned millennia. Enemies that could erase you from existence. It was too much, too far beyond anything I could understand. But I believed him. After everything I'd seen, everything I'd experienced in Crownover Hollow, I believed him. How do they find you? I asked. What do they track? Records, documentation, any proof that we exist. Names written down, data entered into systems. That's why the census is so dangerous. The moment we're recorded in your government's database, it's like a beacon, a signal that tells them exactly where we are. And I entered you in the 1970 census. He nodded slowly. You did. You thought you were helping, hiding us in plain sight. But you entered our names into a system, a computerized system that connects to other systems. The more your technology improves, the more those connections spread. And eventually the signal reaches them. I felt sick. All this time I thought I was protecting you. You were. For 10 years you did. But now the signal is spreading. Computers talking to other computers. Data being cross-referenced and analyzed. They're going to find us, Mr. Whitfield. Not the census investigators, the others, the hunters. What can I do? How can I stop it? He looked at me with something like compassion. You can't. This was always going to happen eventually. We were never going to stay hidden forever. We knew that. We just hoped for more time. There has to be something. He shook his head. Go home, Mr. Whitfield. Forget about us. What's coming you can't help with. And you don't want to be here when it arrives. I didn't want to leave. I felt responsible. My falsified data, my attempt to help, had led the hunters right to them. But what could I do? I was one man against something I couldn't comprehend. "I'm sorry," I said. "I know." I drove back to Washington, threw myself into work, tried to fix the problem from my end. I pulled strings, called in favors, did everything I could to shut down the investigation into Crownover Hollow, made the analyst's findings disappear, buried the discrepancies in bureaucratic confusion. For a while, it worked. The investigation stalled. No one went to Barron County. The 12 families stayed hidden. But in September 1980, I got another call. This one from the sheriff in Ridgemont. "Mr. Whitfield, this is Dale Hutchins. I don't know if you remember me." "I remember. I'm calling because of what happened up in Crownover Hollow." My blood went cold. "What happened?" "They're gone, all of them. The houses are empty. The whole hollow is abandoned." "What do you mean, gone?" "I mean gone. Nobody's there. I went up myself to check after we got some reports. All 12 houses are standing. Everything looks normal, but there's no one inside. No bodies, no signs of struggle, no indication of where they went. Just empty buildings." "When did this happen?" "Near as I can tell, sometime in the last week. But here's the strange part. No one saw them leave. No vehicles came through town, no trucks, nothing. It's like they just vanished into thin air." I closed my eyes. "The hunters." "What do you want me to do?" Hutchins asked. "Report it as a missing persons case? That's 70-some people just disappeared." "No, don't report anything. I'll handle it." "Mr. Whitfield, I don't understand. You don't need to understand. Just leave it alone. Trust me on this." I hung up, sat in my office for a long time, staring at nothing. They were gone. Erased. After thousands of years of hiding, the hunters had finally found them. And it was my fault. My data, my records, my attempt to help that had betrayed them. I drove back to West Virginia one more time. I had to see it for myself. Crownover Hollow was exactly as the sheriff described. Empty houses, doors open, clothes still on the lines. Like everyone had just stepped out for a moment and never came back. But there was something else, something Hutchins hadn't mentioned. The symbols on the rock formation were gone. Not weathered or faded. Gone. The cliff face was smooth, unmarked, like the carvings had never existed. They didn't just take the people, they erased the history. Everything that proved those 12 families had ever been there. I went through each house, looking for something, anything that might have survived. But there was nothing, no photographs, no letters, no personal documents. All of it gone, all of it erased. In the Lowell house, I found one thing, a piece of paper tucked under a floorboard in the bedroom, like someone had hidden it quickly, hoping it would survive. It was a list, 12 names, the family names of Crownover Hollow, Aldridge, Barnwell, Crane, Doyle, Everett, Finch, Graves, Holloway, Irvine, Jessup, Kilpatrick, Lowell. At the bottom, in shaky handwriting, were 3 words: "Remember we existed." I took the paper. It was the only proof left that Crownover Hollow had ever been inhabited, the only evidence that 12 families had lived in these mountains for 180 years, hiding from enemies beyond human understanding. I kept that paper, still have it. It's in a safe deposit box in a bank in Washington with instructions to destroy it if I die. Because if records led the hunters to Crownover Hollow, I wasn't going to let another record lead them to me. I retired from the Census Bureau in 1985. Couldn't do the work anymore. Every time I looked at a form, I thought about what that data could be used for, what signals it might be sending, what ancient horrors might be listening. The 1990 census came and went without me. So did 2000. I watched from the outside as the technology improved, as records became more detailed, as cross-referencing became more sophisticated. and I wondered how many other communities like Crownover Hollow were out there. Hiding in the gaps, staying off the records, avoiding the count. Were they all being hunted? Were the hunters finding them one by one, erasing them from existence, leaving nothing but empty houses and smooth stones? I don't know. I'll never know. But I know this. The census isn't just a count. It's not just numbers in a database. It's a record of who exists. And in a world where being recorded can get you erased, some people have very good reasons for not wanting to be counted. The old man asked me what the census was for. I told him it was about counting the population, understanding who lives where, but he knew the real answer. The census makes people real, makes them visible, makes them findable. And some things can't afford to be found. Somewhere out there they're still hiding. Ancient things that don't age and don't die. Things that just want to be left alone. And somewhere out there the hunters are still searching. Looking for signals, following records, erasing everything they find. The next census is coming. I wonder who won't be counted.